We've been talking today with Letitia Olson and Deb Way, and we've been talking about the programs that are offered at the Center for Individual and Family Development that's located out in Gassville. And we were just talking about, I made an offhanded remark about parents with children that are hyperactive being a little bit lazy in their parenting skills, and Letitia was right there, and she was talking about how oftentimes it's the parents that need to learn a whole new skill set or how to parent that particular child,
Yes,
because they're just different. And we all know if we're parents, our kids are different. So, but what else can people do?
You know, there's a lot of different ideas. I work a lot with kids who have difficulty following directions, and it may be an attention thing, it may be an oppositional thing, it may be a little bit of both. So, you know, one of the things that we've really got to make sure is before we get frustrated and lose our cool, that the kid does know what the direction is and does know what the consequences are going to be. So that's one thing that I really try to focus on a lot in family therapy, is teaching a parent how to, number one, make sure the child has heard and understands what the direction is, and number two, knows what's going to happen. So there's no surprise, and knows what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. A lot of times you get these parents who will give a direction 4 or 5 times and then blow up. Well, that's not consistent. We've given the direction 4 or 5 times. A goal that I work on with a lot of my kids, I usually have my kids set a goal that we work on consistently, and one of the ones I usually start with is, with kids who have trouble following directions, is follow directions first time given with respect. And they learn to repeat that. I'll say, what's your goal? What are you working on today? And every time I do a group therapy session, each child has to tell me what goal they're working on. And a lot of my kids are working on that very one.
That's a great goal to be working on. I can still remember when my kids, who are all adults now, were very young and had gone through some positive parenting classes, as they called them back then. And one of the consequences was that if they did not pick up their school books, their shoes, their jackets, their whatever, that kind of come in the door after school, and it was everywhere. And it was real clear with the directions, if you do not pick them up, and I've got to pick them up at the end of the day, okay, they're going to go into a large bag, and they're going to stay there for the rest of the week. And oh my goodness, to stick to that one, but I need that book for school, I need those sneakers for gym class, I need it. Once, all it took was once. And that was the end of it. Everything got picked up and put away where it was supposed to.
No more fighting, no more arguing, no more chaos in the home.
No more getting, frustrating the heck out of yourself by, I've said to you 3 times now to pick those clothes up. So.
And you know what we've done there is we've provided a consequence that's very life-worthy. That kind of stuff happens in life. If you don't take care of your stuff, it gets broken, it gets stolen, it goes away. But we've also taken that anger right out. I mean, you don't have to get mad because I've said something 10 times. You have just provided an expectation, then provided a consequence, and it's done. And that really helps even wire those connections in the brain, where when things are not going my way, I don't automatically go into that anger mode, and you're modeling appropriate behavior for your child.
Yeah, and they absolutely, we worked on a lot of things. I can still remember also, we ended up, we lived in Southern California, and the rule was, because it's so busy traffic-wise, that the screaming, yelling, throwing things in the car was an absolute no-no. I mean, that was too distracting to the driver. And so it was, just find something to do, read a book, talk quietly, but just don't go overboard. Otherwise, we will turn around and come home. And they got so good at being so good in the car that I kept expecting them one of those days to just blow it along the way. No, and I'd promised Disneyland. We went right up to Disneyland. They had a wonderful time because they were so good in the car. So, so you can change the behavior. It doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to go to Disneyland to do it either, but
changing behavior, I think, is pivotal with a parent being consistent. If you set the consequence, you got to do it. I think that's one of the hardest things I know as a grandparent. who is very active in my grandchildren's life, it's really hard for me to be consistent because I want to be granny and I want to be fun. But if I'm not consistent, then I'm not granny. I'm chaotic and crazy. And it's like, stop.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, you have to kind of monitor yourself. And, you know, you can't blame it on the kid. You know, you can't say it's because of this or this. You know, no, it's here. I have to own my own role.
Yeah, and it is hard as a grandparent because I'm in that same role.
Oh, yeah.
And things that as a young parent that you thought were so important, like picking up the shoes and the shirt, at some point as a grandparent you kind of shift some of that and say, you know, it's not that big a deal. So,
You know, that kind of makes me think about something else I'd like to talk about. In today's world, for several different reasons, we have a lot of grandparents raising their grandkids. And let me tell you, that is a tough gig. I have worked with a lot of different grandparents who are raising, they are the guardian, maybe sometimes the only one for 3 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with some families that are like this, and they don't have people around to support them. That is a very hard thing to do because you have different roles that you were never meant to be in, that you're trying to fill. And, you know, the kids are also dealing with this issue of mom and dad are not here, whether it's because of death or because of incarceration or for whatever reason. The kids have the issue of, I've lost my parents. And then now they have the issue of, I've really lost my grandparent too, because my grandparent has had to become my parent.
Yeah.
And, you know, my heart just goes out to grandparents who are doing that. I've really worked hard with having them sort of figure out a medium role where they can provide that structure, but then make sure that they're building in special grandparent time with their kids so they don't lose all of that, because that's so important.
That'd be great.
To both for the kid and the grandparent.
Yeah, and I know you don't have the energy either. If you're the grandparent, that's why it's better for younger folks to have kids. But you just don't have the physical energy to stay up with the kids either. I mean, that's got to be a real challenge for them. So, you know, like you say, hats off to the grandparents that are raising these kids. But how wonderful that you can give them the tools that they need to still play both roles and do it successfully.
I just really feel like it's very important, and now that I have kids of my own and I see how they interact with their grandparents, I just think it would be so sad if my parents had to raise my kids, because they would lose that really fun role that really helps build character in our kids.
Yep, those. I always find it real interesting because I know with my own grandchild, she's more than open. I've always treated her. She's always been, as an only child, she's always been around a lot of adults and has a pretty mature approach to things. And I've always treated her much more so, except when she was real little, as a young adult than a child. And we just have a wonderful relationship that I know that there's a tremendous amount of trust. And she will say things to me that she knows it's not judgmental in any way, because mom might flip out or or dad might flip out, but grandma's okay because grandma sees the world a little differently, you know, than others. So that's the beauty of grandparents, to be able to bring that to relationships. Well, you've got a new school year coming. You got all these kids heading back to school. What should teachers look for in the classroom? Can you give us some ideas?
Yes, there's. We're actually going to try to offer some teacher in services for any schools who would like to take advantage of that. One of the ones that I have done several times is how to de-escalate a student. So, just for example, a lot of times teachers might get into power struggles with some of these kids who maybe have all these other issues that the teachers don't know anything about, and they get into these power struggles, or they push certain buttons in the kids, and they end up with an explosion in their classroom. Well, this just sets us up for a bad day, a bad week, possibly a bad year. So there's some real good techniques that teachers can use to bring those students back down. and the number one thing I would say to teachers is if you can avoid a power struggle, do it. Don't get in, and I don't mean just let them do whatever, but if there's something you can do when you see you're heading toward a power struggle to get out of it, that's a whole lot better than having that kid escalate up and throw a fit in your classroom.
Right. Well, give us a number where people can, I know teachers out there are listening. I know they are. So how can they reach you?
870-435-5511.
All right. Pretty easy to remember.
Yes.
Pretty easy to remember.
And we are accepting new patients right now.
Okay.
So we're really proactive right now. We've got the brochures ready to go out. We want to make contact with several of our schools.
That's what a great service that you're providing for the communities that we serve, because this is, let's start it early. Let's get it when kids are young, and then try and help those that have matured a little bit and get them into the counseling, sometimes, as you've mentioned, with their families as well. So, will you come back and see us again soon, both of you? We'd love to have you and kind of hear later on in the year how this year has started out, the school year, and kind of where we're at maybe as a community down the road. Would you come back soon?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
Donna.
We are just delighted you were both here today. We've had Letitia Olson and Deb Way representing the Center for Individual and Family Development with us today. We will be back with you again next week. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.